all the guests who are outside to please come inside. The program is just about to begin. Many years ago, I remember reading a story by Frank Koch. He was actually a contributor to the Proceedings. It is a magazine of the Naval Institute. You know, there were 2 battleships, and they had been assigned for a training squadron, and they had been at sea for a very long time. It was heavy weather, and Frank was serving on the battleship, and he was in watch on the bridge. And just then, night fell, and there was a lot of fog around, and the visibility was very bad, and the captain of the ship wanted to be on the bridge just to see that everything is all right. And suddenly, the lookout on the bridge of the ship, he actually shouted, "Light bearing on the starboard bow, Captain." So the captain said, "Is it steady or is it moving astern?" He said, "It's steady." That meant that the ships were actually on collision course. So he called the signal man. I said, "Please tell the other ship to move their course 20 degrees away." So the reply came back, "You move your ship 20 degrees away." So he was furious. He said, "Tell him I'm a captain and he should change the course 20 degrees away." So the reply came, "I am a second-class seaman and you move your ship 20 degrees away." By now he was actually furious. He said, "For Christ's sake, I'm a battleship. Move your ship 20 degrees away." So he said, "I am a lighthouse." The captain had to move his ship. So, very often we are also faced with dilemmas, certain choices we have to make in life. And if our choices are based on spiritual principles, infallible principles, then we can sail through very easily, right? That is the topic of our discussion today. Spirituality and worldly success, shall the twain ever meet? Every day we are faced with this drama. We have so many things. We wonder how our life is going to go on. And these principles are basically like lighthouses. They do not change. And as they say, as more and more things change, you need to embrace things that do not change. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Rajesh Talwar, and I serve as the president of the Artha Forum. A very warm welcome to all of you this evening. Some of you have driven from very long distances to be here with us today. So, His Holiness Radhanath Swami, respected Mr. Alfred Ford, and our main sponsors tonight, Mr. Sumit Ganguly, President of GAVS, and do we have Akash Tiwari here, representing Nitya Infotech? Thank you, Akash, for being here. And of course, our very dear friends, Sushant and Ron Pitambar, and our evening's event sponsor, Rashmikant Kamdar, Dr. Naveen Mehta, and of course, Ron. They are all very dear friends. Thank you very much for being here. I also want to acknowledge the presence of Arthur and Linda Villa. They are very dear friends of Radhanath Swami, and of course, Stuart Sender here. Thank you very much. Chandresh Patel, we are very, very honored to be here on your property. And thank you for being so accommodative, and we're so happy to be here in this beautiful ambience. And of course, Sunil Nayak, who's very gracious to have arranged this venue for us. Very thankful to all of you, sirs. We also have here Madhupati Prabhu is here, the president of ISKCON Central New Jersey. It's very interesting. I would say after the program, please meet with Madhupati Prabhu. He has some very wonderful thoughts to share with all of you. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished professionals here, on behalf of Rajiv Srivastav, Rajiv is here. Rajiv, please put your hand up. Rajiv Srivastav is our principal in Basel Partners. Artha Forum is a non-profit initiative which is actually the brainchild of Rajiv. I know he's squirming in his seat. He's very shy. But I will call you upon the stage to just share some thoughts when I start my presentation. Let me very briefly show you who we are and what we do. Can we have the presentation on, please? All right, we have it here. So very warm welcome to all of you. This is how the program is going to pan out now. We are going to have a 45-minute panel discussion where we have some very eminent personalities whom I'm going to very briefly introduce to you after this. And then we are going to have a presentation here, half an hour presentation by Alfred Ford. It's called Spirituality and Worldly Success. So, spirituality at work. This will go on for about half an hour. At 7 o'clock, we'll just have a 5-minute break. That's not mentioned here. And thereafter, we'll have His Holiness Radhanath Swami speaking on he'll actually stitch up the whole discussion of the panel as well as Mr. Alfred Ford. This will go on for about an hour. And then we have a 20-minute question-answer session with His Holiness, followed by a very short documentary on his book, The Journey Home. For those of you who don't know, Journey Home is a book authored by His Holiness Radhanath Swami. It has done more than $250,000 in sales in over 6 languages. I will be speaking briefly about it when I introduce His Holiness to you later. And thereafter, we'll just have the honors, and then we'll have the sit-down dinner. Please do not leave without having the dinner. We'd really like to know you better. We'll meet you on the table and get to know you better. So at this stage, I'm going to actually show you a little bit about Artha Forum. As I say, everything that can go wrong will go wrong at the right time. So basically, Artha Forum is dedicated to bringing together spirited entrepreneurs and to share with them ancient wisdom in modern business. And we actually want to provide a platform where distinguished professionals come together and they work on a common platform for the good of society. So as I said, this is a not-for-profit initiative. This is our 6th event. We did one event last week in London. We had one event in June last year where Ron and Sushant, they invited us to Silicon Valley. We had a very good gathering there in June earlier this year. So what are our values? We actually believe that wealth generation should be done without greed and pride. It's very important. And without getting implicated in sin. Then that wealth actually lasts you for generations. And we want to have a sustainable business model where, people incorporate charity at the core of the business model and actually help society bring peace into society. So we've been organizing these lectures, seminars for, a transformational impact on society. And we've actually showcased a lot of people who have got inspired by this business model. And I'm going to request Rajiv to just come in a few minutes to tell about this thing. And to actually promote Vedic values, bring the relevance of ancient literature in modern business, and also to motivate the next generation. So here's 2 pioneers who actually have been very inspirational to us. Dr. N.D. Desai, chairman of the Apar Group, and Mr. Rishikesh Mafatlal. Most Indians will know the Mafatlal family. So he's the chairman of the Mafatlal Group of Industries. They are both disciples of Radhanath Swami, and they have been actually, for the past 30 years, they have been incessantly working to give back to society what they have received. This is the 2nd generation, which Rajiv, Kushal, and later Sanjeev, they joined them. I just want to tell you a very brief story. Rajiv started his life at TCS and then he moved on to Pittsburgh, set up a small computer company in Pittsburgh. Within a year, they had made a loss of $400,000 and he was on the verge of closing down his business. Just then, Radhanath Swami came to Pittsburgh, and Radhanath Swami was driving with Rajiv and he wanted to use the restroom. So he said, Rajiv, I want to stop somewhere to use the restroom. He said, Maharaj, my office is just around the block. Can we just go to my office? So Rajiv took him to the office, and Radhanath Swami went inside, used the restroom, came out and looked around and said, so this is your office, right? It's wonderful, very nice. So what do you do? He said, I'm in the IT business. So Maharaj said, okay, I bless your business. Just these words. Just do business without greed and pride, and your business will be blessed. And then there was no looking back after that. I know he's very embarrassed, but I will tell you he's done a lot for society. He's given away a lot of his personal wealth to help this particular endeavor. Of course, this is some statement which really inspires us. You make a living by what you get, but you make a life by what you give. This is Sir Winston Churchill. I'm going to call upon Rajiv to please come here and just share how Artha Forum and this ethos has actually helped some, business people. Rajiv, why don't you come here and just give us a brief explanation about what we do? This is for moving front and back.
I'll just keep it brief. I'll just give examples of what some individuals who have had the fortune of being able to meet His Holiness Radhanath Swami, and I go back many years to my meeting with Eric D'Souza. He's done extremely well in the oil business, but both his daughters, who are extremely accomplished, one who's joined University of Pennsylvania in the undergrad school, and the other who's currently at Stearns, NYU Stearns, both of them did not want to join the father in his oil business, and they actually, the second generation I'm seeing, they want to be involved in businesses which have giving back to society. And now Eric has actually created a separate business where in his new business, in fact, Mr. Alfred will be happy to know that this generation is the second generation in his family is very committed to the Mayapur project, and they have created businesses where they've incorporated as much as 30% of the new business ownership dedicated to the Mayapur temple. We had the anchor group that I met only 3 years ago, and the first day that I met Atul Shah from the anchor group, he said, my father had a business which was making electrical switches. We grew it to a fairly large business and sold it to Panasonic for 670 million. He said after that he invested in real estate. Today it's worth 2 billion. Raji, why are you asking me to do anything? In fact, I have only one daughter, and his words were, I'm blowing up my son-in-law's money. I don't need to do any work, and I don't need to do anything really even in business. But today, in fact, he still hasn't finished His Holiness Radhanath Swami's book, The Journey Home, because he says, I don't want the book to ever get over, so he keeps reading it little by little. But he has now embraced the idea, being inspired by Radhanath Swami, to create new businesses. And, in fact, just 4 or 5 months back, he created a business, he sold the business, and he gave, in the first lot, 10% of his business to charity. His father is very happy that the second generation is now more motivated to doing business, but with a view to giving something back to society. We have 2 other businesses. In fact, Gabs, that is Sumit Ganguly, who has sponsored part of this event. The owners, particularly Dharmendra and Sanjay, and more so Sanjay, who's an aspiring disciple of His Holiness, I was very happy to hear that he just pegged his needs to a particular amount, and he said every amount above this amount, I'm giving it all to charity. And he's very inspired by the ISKCON project in Vrindavan as well as in Belgaum, and we are very happy to see how these youngsters are incorporating. They are being inspired by Srila Prabhupada's Vedic wisdom as presented to us, and utilizing it in their businesses, and being motivated not by just expanding their business, not just by either greed or pride, but in a mood of service to give back to society. Darshan Bhagat, who's in Hong Kong, again met him about 4 years back, very dynamic diamond businessman, and even he is inspired by His Holiness, and he's now giving a significant part of his businesses back to charity. To the other gentleman who's I think Akash, who's right here. He's a young businessman who has grown his company from zero. He actually started it in Princeton, New Jersey, and he unfortunately is now living in Singapore. But he's also dedicated over half his company to charity. Selvam is doing the same thing. I'd only like to just share one thing that we are not coming here and trying to suggest to people what they should do in their business. We are just seeing that all of this happens very naturally. We simply have the fortune to come to hear Vedic wisdom, to listen to His Holiness, and automatically from within the heart, whenever we feel inspired, that we can be in the field of business, and instead of the typical ups and downs and stresses that we go through business, if through the inspiration we change our motivation, then all I can share is that this whole process becomes a lot more peaceful process when it is done as a service to the Lord. I'll let Rajesh continue. Thank you.
Thank you, Rajiv. All right, so just to show you some pictures of our past events, this was the first event we had at the Govardhan Eco Village. This is a village based on sustainable development, and Ron and Sushant and Rashmikant, they happened to come there. This was the first meeting they had with Radhanath Swami. They say, hey guys, why are you doing this in India? Everyone knows these things here. You should come to the West. He said, you come to Silicon Valley, we'd like to do a program there. Rashmikant flew down to Silicon Valley. He also hosted part of the event. And then he said, Swamiji, please come to East Coast. I would love to do a program. And he said, next year I'd like to do a program at Raj in Pennsylvania with maybe 500 people. So anyways, so these are some of the pictures of that event. Here you can see Ron and Sushant. And Sushant hosted a program at his place in Saratoga. It was a very successful program. There were some 80 people. Those 80 people were actually worth probably 8,000. Some very good friends of his came, and that was really nice. Here you can see in the picture, there is on the left hand top, N. Damodar Reddy. Then we have on the right side, Nitin Mehta. Again, very dear friends of Sushant. Down there you have again Ron and others. Venk Shukla of Thai Global on the right hand. Autumn, we did this program in Thai Global, and he was very happy. He said, now I know how to position you guys. Next year when you come to Silicon Valley, I will do a great program for all of you. These are some other pictures of the Silicon Valley Thai Global program. All right, we also have some international training programs here. We take this to the senior management, the key team, and explain to them why we need to do what we need to do and how. So we have these training programs. We'll be happy to engage with you, talk to you. If you'd like us to come and deliver a talk based on these principles, we'll be very happy to do that. We've done a couple of programs in Singapore, in USA, at Pittsburgh, and it was very much appreciated. All right, so in the next 12 months, we again do another program in Govardhan Eco Village. We have another program, we had a very successful program in Bombay where we had some very, very, marquee, very famous people from Bombay, some very big leaders of industry who came and did that. If any of you would like to come in springtime next year for a mini pilgrimage to Vrindavan, please touch base with my colleague Ruchi, and Maharaj will be there, and we'd love to take you and show you the holy land of Vrindavan. So we can organize a small special, pilgrimage for all of you. And London, as I said, last week Maharaj was in London where he spoke to some 500 HSBC investment bankers. This was the third program in London, and one he did. So HSBC has actually, taken Radhanath Maharaj as their mascot for all their spiritual programs. So, and of course Silicon Valley and other things. It is my very great pleasure to introduce to you Mr. Alfred Ford now, who's going to be one of our panelists here. Alfred comes from a very, very illustrious, the Ford family. And he is also a member of the Ford Foundation. In the last 40 years, he has been incessantly working to promote Vedic culture and spirituality. In fact, he's going to speak a lot about his favorite project, his lifetime's project, which is in the West Bengal. It is the largest Hindu temple being built in the last 1,000 years. I mean, it's even taller than the Saint Basilica of Rome and the cathedral in London. So he's going to talk probably more about that. Of course, Radhanath Swami is our inspiration behind all these programs. I'm going to now invite the panelists here, Mr. Alfred Ford. We have with us Dr. Naveen Mehta, who's a very, very accomplished ENT surgeon and a face reconstructive and a head and neck surgeon here. He is the chairman of the Association of the American Association of Physicians of Indian Origin, the New York chapter. He is also the trustee of the Bharatiya Vidya Bhavan and also the chairman of the Gujarati Vikas Manch. Actually, Dr. Mehta doesn't need any introduction in this part of the world because everyone knows him. And I believe I just came to know today that he also operated on Radhanath Swami once. Anyway, so very happy to have you here with us, sir. We also have here with us Hiten Patel. He is the CEO of Collabora. It is they provide end-to-end IT services, and they have some 8,000 employees worldwide with many, many dev centers spread across the globe. It's a very wonderful business. And Hiten is also a very accomplished person. So when I requested him to come on the panel, he instantly said yes. He said, I would love to share my views. Of course, we also have with us Vikram Gulati. He is the co-founder and managing director of Happiest Minds. It is a company promoted by Ashok Soota. Many of you probably know he's one of the doyens in the IT industry. And he is a practitioner of Bhagavad Gita. He lectures on Bhagavad Gita. He has deep-rooted interest in spirituality. At this point of time, I would like to invite all of you gentlemen to please come and take your seats here. Ladies and gentlemen, please give a loud round of applause. Thank you. Come here, Vikram. Dr. Naveen. Or Hiten, can you come this side, please?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, sure. Thank you. Please have a seat. Can I have the caller mic on, please? So, gentlemen, there are two mics here. Maybe both of you can share this one.
Sure.
And likewise. All right, without wasting any time, I'm going to put a very straightforward question to each of you gentlemen. Please begin with a couple of words of introduction of yourself, and then I want to ask you two questions first. What does spirituality mean to you? And what, in your words, constitutes worldly success? So I will request Vikram to begin.
Sure. Thank you, and really it's a pleasure to be here. My name is Vikram Gulati, and like Rakesh said, is that I'm the CEO for Happiest Minds, and that's something that I've been doing for the last 2 years. I really spent the last 25 years in the IT services business. I won't go too much into myself. I think that's not the point here. The point is about spirituality and worldly success. I think the way I look at spirituality vis-a-vis worldly success is very simple. Spirituality is about everything inside us. It's about things that are inside our mind. It's about to do with ourselves as an individual and how we connect with other individuals around us, human individuals as well as all of creation around us. Right? That's to my mind spirituality. Worldly success happens to be everything about what people think of me, right? It's how people define you, or how you define yourself vis-a-vis other people. It's materialistic. right? And there are very, very clear ways in how these two can really connect, but I guess that we'll get into the panel discussion.
Dr. Mehta?
My name is Dr. Mehta, and I'm a practicing surgeon in New York City, New York. I came from the very small family from the western part of Gujarat, very tiny family. When I was 3.5, my mother died, and her last wish that I should become a surgeon. That's my spirituality, and since that day one, I never looked backward. I wanted to be a surgeon, and she just said one thing I remember, I barely remember her face, to try to help other people who are in need of the help. Do not help those people who do not need your help. And since that day onward, my goal was to be a spiritual in practicing what she told me and to do exactly what she wanted me to be. Success is what you want to be. You define your goal, define your path, and you follow that path honestly, humbly, and do the thing what you think is right. Our society has defined the moral. What is moral and immoral? I believe that comes from your heart. What you think you're doing is right, that's the moral. And for me, the spirituality and success, that's exactly what I am today, what my mom wanted to be. Not to be a multi-billionaire, but to go to bed every night happy, satisfied with your own thing, what you're doing, and try to walk on the moral path. Thank you.
Hitan, would you take a shot first before Mr. Ford speaks?
Hello. So first of all, thanks for the wonderful introduction for all the panelists, and in his presence, Holiness presence, I think is a wonderful thing. We actually are looking forward to listening to him today. But my introduction, I'm Hitan Patel, President, Chairman of Collabra. We are a 8,000 people IT services firm. Dr. Nain Mehta, I also come from a very small family, back in Gujarat, and had never dreamed of reaching where we are today. So to me, spirituality is, making sure you do the right things. Wherever you are, whatever you do in your business, without getting into any kind of greed, what is the right thing to do from a righteousness perspective, do that. To me, spirituality means sharing what you have, whether it's a knowledge or a wealth, both on a personal level and a business level, with the people, whatever you feel comfortable with and whatever you can, right? So spirituality means, to me, about uplifting human in the need, in whichever way perform, and wherever you can. As far as the worldly success, of course, everybody talks about the wealth, but to me, wealth is, the family. To me, wealth is the friendship. To me, wealth is the business. So it's a combination of all that. And like what Vikram said, it's about how you look at yourself and how world looks at you. That to me is the success at the end of the day.
My name is Alfred Ford. I'm a member of the Ford family and also a practicing member of ISKCON. I have been since 1974. And I grew up, was born into a family that was already at the pinnacle of worldly success. Everything was there, money, fame, fortune, everything. And no one was happy. So I was, the lesson I learned when I was very young was there must be something more than this because nobody's happy here. So at that point, I started investigating and looking into spiritual life. We had some pious people in my family, but not really people who were deeply involved in spiritual life. So when I was in college, I started investigating different paths of spirituality. And by great good fortune, I met the devotees when I was 24 years old. And when I was 25, I met my spiritual master, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Took initiation from him, and it completely changed my life. And for me, actually, spiritual life to me, a lot of people, when you say spiritual life, they think of some kind of ethereal operation or ethereal, practices and stuff like that. But actually, for me, spiritual life really means a lot of hard work. You know, my spiritual master gave me certain things that he wanted me to do. It involves a lot of hard work. Also, when you're serving the Guru and serving the Supreme Personality of Godhead, it's a lot of hard work from the day up to day down. So there's a lot of regimen, a lot of discipline involved in spiritual life. It can't be just sitting and dreaming about clouds and stuff like that. It's not like that at all. It takes a lot of thought, and it takes a lot of practice. And that's been very good for me to have discipline in my life. And I think discipline is very important also in work. I'm happy to hear this, you know, avoiding pride and greed, because certainly they're big stumbling blocks in any business. There was a wonderful book that was written a few years ago. It was called From Good to Great. And what makes some businesses thrive and become great businesses, and great business leaders become great business leaders. And basically, if you break down what they're telling you, it's all based on spiritual principles: humility, focus, all these things. These are all spiritual principles. So, you know, I was interesting when I heard the topic, you know, will the Twain ever meet? Frankly, I don't think it's ever really been separated. I think that, you know, certainly before, up until the last couple of hundred years, religion, and spirituality, and work were always joined together. I mean, if you look at all the great buildings and great works of art, great literature, they all were focused around the church, and the church was a great benefactor of many spiritual endeavors and great buildings and cathedrals and stuff like that. It's only in the last couple of hundred years that they've become, you know, separated, sectarian versus spiritual, like that. I don't know if it's a Protestant ethic or whatever, but it's become kind of separated. But, you know, I think people who are very successful and also very happy make their spiritual life a big part of their existence. You'll see people like Bill Gates, Warren Buffett. They've pledged to give away 50% of their fortunes, and you know, it's very important for them to go out and try to help humanity. People that you see that are extremely selfish, and not really so much greedy, but selfish. And I think they're like really miserable, and I've seen that, and they really need some spiritual life. And my project that I'm working on in India is really, which I'll show you later, is really based on principles of Vedic culture that can be utilized in all sorts of forums around the world: business, academia, this, that, and the next thing. But you know, this is a wonderful gift that India can give to humanity, because we're becoming much more impersonal in this day and age, much more mechanistic. And we really need to repersonalize and spiritualize everything that we do, every business that we're in, and bring it back down to the principles, human principles actually, that you know, we're all really grounded in, you know, and that we're losing track of. So hopefully we'll discuss about this more. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ford. Gentlemen, do you feel that at times, you know, you are pursuing one goal at the cost of the other? Does it happen in your life? See, the idea is to be very candid and tell us what you actually feel, your inner feeling. Do you actually feel sometimes that, you know, you're having a difficulty succeeding at both goals? I mean, you actually end up doing one at the cost of the other, and does that cause any stress? Would you like to attempt?
I think I'll take off from where Mr. Ford left off on, sure.
On
the word selfish.
Are the panelists audible to you? All of you behind?
I think there's a very interesting a mind experiment you can do with this word selfish, right? My hypothesis is that human being is fundamentally selfish, right? But what are you selfish about? If you're selfish about just yourself, then that's the bad selfish part of, you know, it's the one that you would frown upon. But if you are selfish about your family, maybe that's your job as a householder. How about being selfish about the community? How about being selfish about the region that you come from? How about being selfish about the country? How about being selfish about humanity, about creation itself? The word selfish suddenly disappears, and what comes in its place is a word selfless, right? So the play on words, it's not what you are doing is, but what are you attaching the work that you are doing with? What is it attached to? If it's just attached to your personal goals and your own individual fulfillment or your individual orientation, then yes, there will be always a conflict between the so-called spiritual part of you and the worldly part of you. But the moment you can attach what you're doing to a larger than life goal, which is not just about you, but about a much bigger picture, and you can define it and vision it and visualize it in your mind, I think that entire work starts becoming a spiritual exercise by itself. There aren't really two different sides of the same thing. It is one and the same.
Thank you. Dr. Mehta?
That word is very hard to define for me. When I was little, I came from a very small town, and there was no difference between any religion. I'm Jain family, and I had every other religion people friend. Like I said, when I was small, one old man I used to see, who used to be my father's friend, very poor person. He used to tell me in Hindi, खूब कमाओ पैसे हीरे मोती, लेकिन याद रहे जबन में कफन में जेब नहीं होती. It means earn a lot of things. There's never look back, make money. But just remember one thing, when you go, you're not going to take anything with you. You will be covered with one white cloth, and that white cloth does not have the pocket. That was selfishness. The guy used to tell me, be big, make a lot of money, but make sure you share it. Make money for other people, not selfishness in an immoral way. Earn in a hard way, but right way with moral, and distribute the wealth. I remember when I came here with $8 and change, like most of you, when I earned my first check from residency, my father was with me, and he took away the check from my hand. He said, this is not your money. This is the money has to be given away. And I remember at that time he sent $100 to Vrindavan, and the rest of the money he sent back to India. I said, Dad, you know how much I have worked hard to get this money? He said, that's selfishness. This is the God's money. It's not your money. Since that day onward, whatever I made, I decided, my wife is with me always. She gets upset sometimes that you don't give money here, you have to give money, donate everywhere. I said, but we don't make, we are not multi-billionaire. But he said, you made an oath, and you got to give it more than what you have decided. Selfishness, we take it in a very wrong way when we want to just make money and do not want to distribute. When we distribute just for somebody else, for something else, for the good cause, that's where that word selfishness disappears. You're making, you're earning, not just to live nicely, but to make other people. Help one person at a time, and you can make a big difference. Gandhiji used to say, if you want to see a change, change yourself. Make a difference in other people's life. That's the selfishness. I'm selfish, but in a different way. To distribute the money, to give the wealth, to help some way. Either way, whichever way you can help. Money is not everything. The knowledge, you can distribute the knowledge same way. I remember when I was taking my board, my father used to tell me, now you're 31 years old, how much you want to earn? How much you want to learn? What is the education? Where is it going to end? And then I used to tell him, Dad, when people come to me, I should be the last word before the God's words when I give the opinion. That's the knowledge, that's the wealth, that's just to share. I still tell the medical student where I teach at New York Medical College, learn is a never-ending thing, and the knowledge is more powerful. Selfishness in a way, learning, yes. Learn as much as you can, but also distribute like your wealth, knowledge, and also the physical, whichever way you can. That's, for me, selfishness.
Well said, Dr. Mehta. Hiten, would you like to?
I just want to make sure your question is around selfishness, right?
No, it's not. Actually, that's what he said.
Oh,
My
okay.
question was, how, do you often feel that you're pursuing one goal at the cost of the other? And does that produce stress? Spirituality or worldly success?
Okay. So I think, to me, I think it has happened to me in my life, earlier when you start the business first time, you really have to put all of what you have to grow that business. So the business that I started within 3 months was about to fold. And I put all of my 10 years saving into buying this business, which was about to fold in 3 months. I had only one contract. And that contract also was lost. So here, last 10 years of all the hard work is in one company and it's gone. So I did, that time I remember I had my daughter, and for the next 3-4 years, I was not able to spend that much time. And that did kind of create, the type of stress that you're talking about. But at that time, it was important to me to make sure that what I have taken in my hand, I do the right job at that, and then rest will follow, right? So I learned that lesson, and fortunately, by the time second kid, I had all the things that I wanted, and I make sure that he becomes my priority. And I spent a lot of time with him, and even till date, now both the kids are, by God grace, in a good business school. But yes, I did go through that time myself. And that time you have to really realize what is your priority. And can that time come again? And that's how you go about managing it. So that's my own personal experience.
Okay, let's be honest. I'm going to ask you a question. See this. Until you surrender your time, you will have a difficult time surrendering your possessions. Gentlemen, how much time do you spend outside of your work activities for common good? And how do you kind of prioritize your work-life balance?
This is very personal to me. So I've been fortunate enough to be a part of Chinmay Mission. And every Sunday morning, I make it a point to work with 10th, 11th, 12th graders. And we have a class, we have about 700-800 kids who come to the class, to the school for a Sunday school. But in that class, I have about 30 kids. And every Sunday, in fact, that Sunday experience of an hour and a half to 2 hours has started becoming the highlight of my week. Because spending that 1.5 hours to 2 hours with extremely bright, extremely inquisitive teenagers who want to ask every single question, and you are trying to look for answers for that in your own scriptures. And the answers are there. It is a challenge. I have had situations where I'm coming back from India, and I go to India very often because of business. I land by that United flight at 5:40 in the morning at Newark, and I have to go home, refresh, and get back to that class at 10 o'clock. And I organize my trips to India in a way that I reach back home on Sunday. So it's doable, and you're absolutely right. Unless you can give your time and ideas and knowledge, money giving is easier. Unless you can give your time, knowledge, and ideas, the loop is not completed. So it's possible, and like someone said, time hota hai, time banana padta hai, right? Sure. Time banana padta, you have to make time. Time doesn't exist otherwise.
Sure.
You're so right. It's always time for, when there's a will, there's a way. This table has 4 legs. My life is like a tripod. I divide my life. 1/3 is my family life, and 1/3 is other life. I have to balance it. Sometimes the balancing is not easy, but it's not impossible. I do the things, manage the time very well. I'm a busy surgeon, I'm a busy practitioner, I do a lot of things with my own profession. Other 1/3 goes with my family. 3 kids, my wife, me. We take up our time, 6 weeks every year, we are out, we're done. And the other 1/3 is for the community. Charity work, community work, every Friday, Saturday, Sunday, we are out, we are doing something somewhere. Doing something, sometimes people say, don't you get tired? You hardly sleep. And I tell everyone, if you enjoy the thing, what you're doing, you will never get tired, never get tired. Seeing people, seeing different personalities, doing different work is itself satisfaction inside the heart. And you have time, everybody has a time, it is just to how you manage your own time.
Mr. Ford, how much time do you spend on your spiritual activities, and how much time do you spend on your work?
Well, I find that for myself, because I'm not Indian. I was not born, in this culture. It's an adopted culture for me. Like I see my wife, she's Bengali, and for her, there's some scars. It's just natural. It's part of her temperament to get up. She does puja and everything like that. For me, it requires, as I said before, discipline. I have to get up early in the morning. I have to chant my japa. Then I have to do my puja. And, I do that. That's how I start my day every day. And I think if my consciousness in the beginning of the day is in that frame of mind, then I can go and I can do so many other things. I think really it's a matter of consciousness. As long as for myself, as long as I remember that everything belongs to God, it's all His property. I'm just, there doing my duty. I mean, in a way, it's like, Arjuna in the Bhagavad Gita. He certainly was experiencing conflict, but in the end, he straightened it out and he did his duty. Krishna explained what his duty was, and he did it. So, I know what my duty is, and as long as I keep my consciousness in the right frame of mind, then I won't be overwhelmed by illusion. When I start thinking that I'm the doer, that I'm responsible for success or failure, then I know I'm in trouble. But it takes discipline for me, because my natural inclination is to be in Maya, because that's I'm a Westerner. And that was just the way I was raised. And so I have to practice that discipline every day.
Very nicely said, Mr. Ford. Hiten, how do you allocate your time for your family, for your, personal time, and for your spiritual activities?
So I think one is spending time, and then about the surrender question that you were asking. I think one goes through various phases in the life, and times become a very interesting element as you go through the various phases in life, right? I think where I am currently, I'm fortunate to have a right balance of time spent in the business to do the right things, then time spent with the family, and time spent on personal needs. Be it meditation or you have any personal interest. Sumit is laughing at me like playing golf, so those kinds of things. So you actually, as you go through the different phases of life, the priorities changes, and you do have it that way. As far as surrender is concerned, I tell you honestly, even today I struggle with that. Part of me thinks that, this current society has become so intellectually high that surrender becomes an intellectual exercise. So it just becomes a word in your head. But when you want to experience surrender, it's a very different thing, right? I give you two examples. I always ask my mom, she is so devoted, and she has entirely turned her life through a surrender to God. And I always envy that how is she able to do that? And she said, it's too early for you. And then I go and talk to my friend. I said, whenever I'm in a meditation, a lot of thoughts come, and I've tried different techniques and it just doesn't go away. He said, do one thing, put a logic. When the thought comes, think that the God is right in front of you. Are you going to think about that thought, or you're going to think about the God? And I said, of course, God. So keep reminding yourself that God is right there in front of you, and your focus will automatically come. So I think the times and the surrender is a matter of setting your priority. So he told me that figure out your priority and everything will change. So since then, before meditation, I say certain things, and it works. So it's all about that.
Gentlemen, a very personal question. See, either your career or your finances or your relationships with a son, daughter, wife, your physical health or your mental health, one thorn keeps on pricking you all the time, right? To a more or less degree. How do you cope up? How do you cope up, and what is that thing that keeps you awake at nights? Please be very candid.
How do you cope up with the thought, or what is that thought?
Yes, both things.
Okay. So I think we'll leave what is that thought separate, because that can get slightly too personal. But how do you cope up with negativity? How do you let's take an example that you worked your best in business, and the results are less than what you expected, or the result is an utter failure, right? How do you still have faith? How do you still have faith in saying that I did everything that I could do and it's not a cop-out? I think one simple technique that has worked for me personally is that, and that goes into, again, comes from our scriptures, is that when you do any work, if you consider that work as an offering to the Lord, the quality of that work will be superlative, right? Just like when you go to a temple, you don't give rotten fruits. You give the best fruits as an offering. You give the best things that you have as an offering to the Lord. So if your work becomes an offering to the Lord, the quality of that work will be superlative. Also, when you receive outcome from your work, with work you'll always get outcome. When the outcome is there as a result of your work, accept it as an offering from the Lord, as a prasad, as the Lord has given you that as his prasad to you. Because you don't, when the Purohit or the Pandit gives you an apple, and let's say you hate apples, you love oranges, you don't negotiate with him and say, hey, I'll give you this apple back and can you give me an orange, right? You accept the apple with humility and move on. I think that's the only way you can overcome those negativities, those failures, and failures will obviously be there. Those things that keep you awake and actually sleep well. Because if you accept them as prasad, where is the question of negotiating or arguing about it?
Dr. Mehta, how do you cope up with your reversals? What are your personal...
Never let anything else enter in your brain. Keep yourself busy. I have my next year's schedule from January until December, all prepared already. I know exactly what day I'll be where. Keep yourself so busy that I get up in the morning, there's always some incentive, not incentive for the money, but incentive of work. 18 hours every day. I woke up today at 5, I went to did surgery, all day did the surgery. Nothing else comes. When you're working, you're doing surgery, your mind is focused on what you're doing. I came home, picked up Rashmi, I knew exactly this is where I will be. Keep yourself busy and no other thought will enter in your mind. Try to be multitasker and appoint yourself. What's your tomorrow? What you're going to do tomorrow? And try to do the thing what you enjoy most. If you're not enjoying, do not do it. There's no reason to keep on doing. As a human being, there's no reason for the thing what you don't enjoy, what you don't like, why we have to do it. Learn to say no. We have one very respected person, Dr. Jayaramanji. Some of you have heard about him. He will tell me, ek na lakh sukh, ek ha sankado dukh. Don't say yes to everything. When you have to learn where to say no, you can't do it, you can't do it. There's a limitation. But try to be multitasker, keep yourself very busy with the work which you enjoy. You will never get tired and you will look for another day, one more day, nice day to work for. Satisfaction is very relevant. Try to be satisfied what you have, like half a glass full, half a glass empty. What you want to do, if you're thirsty, half a glass full is good for you. If you're not thirsty, it's true, you look at that, the glass is empty. Try to look in a very different way with the life, not the way we are brainwashed since our childhood. Many things we are taught, which has no meaning, there's no relevance in real life. Real life is different. Try to find your happiness on your own. Nothing is written in the book that this will make you happy. You learn with your bad experience, good experience, and right on the moral path. You are the one who create your future. You are the one who write your fortune. There's a one nice share in Hindi. खुद करो बुलंद इतना अपनों को कि खुदा तुझसे पूछे बंदा बता तेरी रजा क्या है. Work so hard that God tells you what you want me to write in your luck, what you want me to do for you tomorrow, what you want in your life. You have everything. And then you tell God, I'm very happy with what I am. I'm completely satisfied. That's what the life is all about. For me.
How do you cope up with reversals?
Well, I came to the conclusion many years ago, actually, that I have very little control over the results of whatever I'm doing. So I think detachment is really, one of the primary tools that you can use so that you don't get upset when things don't go right. And that happens all the time. So I try to practice detachment. At the same time, I work very hard to do what I think is the best thing to do. There's this story. I think it's very easy to be overwhelmed by your mind. And for myself anyway, I'm just speaking for myself. And so, as I said before, my life involves a lot of discipline. And it involves a lot of chanting, Hare Krishna, which is a mantra, which means to deliver the mind. Otherwise, if I let my mind go unbridled, I'll make myself crazy, because I'm obsessive compulsive and I want things to be perfect. And, I'm married to someone who's also a perfectionist. So, we would be, they'd have to lock us up, So we're very happy that my spiritual master gave me a very practical process for training the mind. And I think what I wake up and wonder is, could I be doing more? Those are the questions that I ask myself a lot, either in my personal relationships or in my spiritual life or whatever. Could I be doing more? And of course, the answer is yes. I could always be doing more. But at the same time, I can't do everything, and I have to set limits. And that's when really, taking care of doing some mantra meditation and bringing oneself back into perspective really helps.
Beautiful.
So I think first is, if you run your day through the right principles and the values that are important to you, then you hope that at the end of the day, you will not have a sleep, right? But right before going to the sleep, I have a process that I follow. And, in the business that we are, a lot of things do happen. And there will be times when you will be up in the night. And there I have a 3-step process. I have first thing I do is a body scan. So I'm sure a lot of you may be aware of what the body scan is. If not, then you can go on the net and find out. And if the body scan doesn't put me back into sleep, I use a mantra like Mr. Ford is talking about. And if the mantra doesn't work, then I have a super mantra that's given by one of the gurus. So I use that. And I think one of the 3 works most of the time. So
I simply tire out in sleep. Okay. One last round of questions before we, stop the session. What are your concerns about the next generation? What are the thoughts you'd like to share? Or, if you were to talk to a group of teenagers, what would you say about spirituality and worldly success to them? Very crisp and short. I'd like any of you to start. Mr. Ford, would you like to begin?
Well, I have 2 daughters, and one of them is a saint, and the other one is not so much. But what I tell them is that they can't be happy if they just focus on materialism, and I know that they both believe that. And I see today the young kids really become the victims of the culture, especially in America, where fame is glorified, wealth is glorified, and I'm not talking about good wealth that's shared as we've all been talking about, but I'm talking about, gluttonous wealth, and showy wealth, and, going on TV and having your own show and just acting absurd. I don't know where the culture is going in America. It's unfortunate that the rest of the world follows it. I don't think it's a good idea. But I would warn the kids of today, don't just put all your faith in materialism, because it's going to come back and it's going to bite you. You better figure out what there is beyond this world, because that's what you're going to take with you when it's finished, and that's also what's going to make you happy in this life.
Thank you.
I think both of my kids, I tell them only 2 things. One is don't be self-centered in whatever you do. Another thing is have a sense of giving. Like Dr. Mehta said about the first check, actually I told the same thing to my daughter, Dr. Mehta. But my son, I've been very fortunate. My son, at the age of 16, started a non-profit organization where he took 15 Indian American kids of 16-year-old and went to a jail in India in summer and taught about 50 kids about the life transformation. At that age, I was very surprised because I couldn't even take the heat in July for 15 minutes. And they spent actually 3 weeks there teaching the kids about how to transform their life, because at that age of 16, they can actually become a good human being or a very bad human being if nobody holds their hand. And today, in 3 years, his organization has spread to about 150 people in India, and he's taking about 50 kids from US. And that's how he's working about giving to the society, you know. So.
Very nice, very nice. Dr. Mehta?
I have 3 kids. Unfortunate thing, what I said, my kids, they're grown, they're very well educated. Like I said, knowledge is the power. They are involved in many different activities. My little daughter used to go to jail. She was at UPenn as a lawyer, and she used to go and teach the prisoners. So one day I came home and Rashmi asked me, how is Suniti? I said, she's in a jail, and all hell broke loose. Without anything, any other word, she kept on calling everyone, what is she doing in jail? I said, no, she's there to teach. She went to Jordan, she went to Egypt, she went to Cairo, she was involved in many humanitarian work. She is just now involved. She was in a congressional panel, she went to the White House and everything. I tell children, you define your own path, be moral, be reasonable. But what Mr. Ford said, there are so many things I see in the society. I'm in New York, I see the kids completely drugged up with pot, cocaine, marijuana. Drinking is just like a social, like we drink water, they drink alcohol all the time. I tell kids, I tell them exactly this is wrong, but I see it. Society is high-powered with high technology, with the Google, media, and all other social activities. Friday evening, if you walk in New York, you will see the New York is totally different. Saturday evening, if you look in the New York, it's totally different. Sometimes I feel like to cry that this is the next generation, because I think the education what we have taught as Indians in the family, in the house, our kids are probably different than I see so many other children. Our children believe in God. My kids, all of them, they recite Gayatri Mantra. They believe in God. They say, thank God, give me one more day like this. But what I'm just saying, the younger generation needs Swamiji. Younger generation needs some spiritual guidance. It's not easy to convert them because it's the peer pressure, what they see in the school, what they do in the colleges. The things are different than what I was kid, what I was small. When I came here first time, I was sitting in my professor's class, and there were other kids. They had their leg up on the table and they were drinking coffee. Back home, we will never even dare to lift up our leg and sit in front of the teacher that way. I have my teacher who is blind now, who is 97 back home, my primary grade teacher. I still go there. He's blind, he can't see me. I go to see him. I will not sit until he tells me, please sit down. Even though he's blind, he can't see me, but I will not sit. That's what with the respect. This society, this new generation, doesn't have that. They have their own different things. So, message to the younger generation, there are a lot of younger generation here. Try to follow your path, believe in God. There is such thing as a power, as a force, as a guiding light, as power, but we need more people like Swamiji. We need more people who can teach them the reality in their life.
Beautiful. Thank you.
I'll keep it short. I think I have 2 experiences with kids. So instead of despairing about what the future is with the younger generation, I think let's do something about it. So one is that I make sure that I spend my time with youth, not my kids, but other youth, to get them to learn values, learn Hindu culture, learn scriptures, so that they have those seeds in them which will blossom as time goes on. And kids actually look at us as role models. How we behave, how we conduct ourselves is the biggest learning for kids. If we say something and do something completely contrary, the first person who picks it up is your kid, is your daughter or your son. So discipline and being consistent with your thoughts, your words, and your actions in what you're doing at home with them is extremely important. And it's also very scary. I'm right now, and you touched a raw nerve of sorts, because my older daughter, she's graduating from Duke next year in 2014. And what she's working on right now is on a Peace Corps application. She wants to go for 2 years to some, I don't know where in the world, for 2 years and spend with Peace Corps. Now, as a father, I'm scared. But as one human being to another, I'm saying, yes, do it. So I think something must have worked for her to come out of a great college and then say, you know what, I'll not go in for a professional career for the next 2 years. I'll go out and do Peace Corps somewhere in some corner of the world as pure service, right? So it's about you finally, and how you conduct yourself is what the next generation is going to look at. Thank you.
Thank you. Gentlemen, we are running out of time. I want you to give me a 30-second message. I'm going to time you. Just speak for 30 seconds and tell me what is your take-home message today? Just for 30 seconds each.
You put me in the spot there. I think very simply, the simple message is be in the present. We are consumed by the fears of the future and the regrets of the past. Both of them are completely pointless. If we can be in the present now, all the time, I think we are it.
I believe there are only two times. One was the yesterday, one is tomorrow. The present, when I'm talking, it becomes suddenly the past. So it's a past and present. Find a good company, be in a company of the intelligent people, be in a company of the good people, and try to be spiritual. Thank God for everything.
Mr.
Um, I would say that we become what we practice, and if we have it in our mind every day that we're going to make spiritual life a priority in our lives, and we practice on a daily basis, then that's what we'll become. Because no matter what we do, if we keep practicing it, we'll become that. So we have to make spiritual life a priority and become a little disciplined about it. Make it a priority and do it every day. Thank you.
I think a lot of good messages are already given, so I would say never stop learning, right? Come to these kinds of places where you pick up few things. And a lot of time is not something that you know, it's about what you know repeatedly, and that's when it becomes part of your system. So keep learning, be open to different wisdom, and when time is right, it will come to you. So.
Thank you, gentlemen. Sure.
Let me just say one line. Aristotle had said once, what we are, what we do repeatedly. Thus, excellence is not an act, but it's an habit.
Thank you. Gentlemen. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Ford.
Thank you very much. Okay.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, a warm round of applause. Thank you. Thank you. At this time, I would like Mr. Ford to come and deliver a speech, and I would like to invite Sushant to come and just garland Mr. Ford as a mark of honor. Can we have the garland here? It's right here. Speaking for about 10 minutes.
Yeah, okay, I'll try to keep it short. No, I have it like in my thing, it's 10 minutes.
Sure. Can you please put on the presentation which Mr. Ford has brought?
Well, Hare Krishna. Well, it's wonderful to be here, and I wish we would have more functions like this for the business community in the United States, and especially for young people who are becoming entrepreneurs and starting their own companies, et cetera, because it's such an important topic. And I learned at a very early age, as I said earlier, that material life without spiritual life is dry and meaningless, actually, and it doesn't make one happy. And you end up by substituting this or that or the next thing to try to perpetuate feelings of happiness that you can get from a spiritual life. And my great-grandfather, Henry Ford, was very much interested, especially in Indian spiritual life. He was a firm believer in reincarnation. When he was 9 years old, he could take apart a watch, a pocket watch, and put it back together again. And nobody ever gave him any formal training, so he was wondering, where did I learn how to do this? And his conclusion was that he learned it in a previous lifetime. So he studied reincarnation. He was very much involved with it. And also he was more or less of a vegetarian. He did a lot of experimenting with soybeans. I mean, I can't really say that he's the father of tofu, but he did do a lot of experimenting with soybeans, as far as making parts of cars out of them, et cetera, like that. So he was like a really interesting person. Either in my family, either you're a great business person or you're kind of an oddball. And he was both, and I kind of took after the oddball side of him, So I became very interested in spiritual life and was very fortunate to have met A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, the founder, Acharya of the Hare Krishna movement, and I met him, and he actually became, the center of my life since I was 24 years old. I'm now 62, so for many, many years, I've been trying to follow and trying to serve him. And he actually gave meaning to my life, and his teachings are really at the basis of everything that I do. My business arrangements, I'm involved with a lot of different startup companies. One of them is a nanotechnology company with a brilliant scientist from Boston, Dr. Anita Goyle. She's invented a chip that can diagnose pathogens in blood in a matter of minutes rather than sending them to a lab and having it take 3 or 4 days or even a week. So, she's not out to make a killing with this invention. She wants to take it into third world countries and have it go to the villages in China and India and revolutionize healthcare. And so I'm very fortunate to be involved and invested in her company. And I'm on the board of advisors along Radhanath is also on the board of advisors. So I try to get involved in businesses that have some social outlook, are going to benefit humanity or benefit the world somehow or another, just not make a lot of money. Although when you see this project, you'll see why actually I need a lot of money now too. But anyway, I've been very, very fortunate in my life, and I'm married to a wonderful Bengali doctor. She's a PhD in microbiology, very smart woman. I can't pull the wool over her eyes at all. So she keeps me on my toes, and I'm very fortunate to have her as my partner in life. And so I've been very, very blessed, and I have wonderful association. I'm very close friends with Radhanath Swami. He came to my daughter's wedding. My daughter married a Gujarati boy who's a lawyer in Washington. So we have a lot of blessings, and Krishna's been very kind to us. And one of the projects when I was in Detroit, I started the center in Detroit I didn't start it, but we went out and we bought a building there, and I was good friends with Walter Reuther's daughter, if any of you know about labor relations. Walter Reuther founded the United Auto Workers. So Walter Reuther and Henry Ford were arch enemies, and his daughter, Elizabeth, and I both took initiation from Prabhupada the same year. So it was a big deal. They had a big thing in the papers and everything like that. And we opened up a big center. She and I together purchased this mansion, the Fisher Mansion in Detroit. And when I went there to visit Srila Prabhupada in 1976, he planted the seed of this idea of building a temple in Mayapur. And of course, I didn't even know where Mayapur was at that time. So I ruminated on it for many, many years, and finally we've started construction on it. And Mayapur is the birthplace of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in West Bengal. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the person who introduced the chanting of Hare Krishna, which is the Yuga Dharma. This is Kali Yuga. It's very difficult to practice spiritual life in Kali Yuga. There's so many distractions, disturbances. It says in the Bhagavatam that, they're giving the characteristics of this age. People are always disturbed. So someone whose mind is always disturbed, it's very, very difficult to practice spiritual life. But this chanting of Hare Krishna is very easy to perform. There's no hard and fast rules. You can do it anywhere at any time. And so Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who came 500 plus years ago to West Bengal, he introduced the chanting. He's an incarnation of Krishna, and he introduced the chanting of Hare Krishna. So we're all followers of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And Srila Prabhupada wanted to build a temple at his birthplace to attract people to come there and learn about meditation and Krishna consciousness and spiritual life. And also, not only to learn about spiritual life, but also a planetarium that would present the universe according to the Bhagavatam, because Srila Prabhupada was very, very disturbed by modern scientific, atheistic, mechanistic view of the universe, that life comes from a big chunk that exploded. No, life comes from life. Life comes from God. And so this planetarium will present the universe according to the Vedas, how everything is coming from God. And there is no death. There's just changing from one form of life into another, and evolving, and everything is coming from the Supreme Personality. And it talks about this extensively in the Bhagavatam. So this is an effort on the part of people who believe in the philosophy of the Vedas to confront modern scientists, have them come, we'll have discussions, seminars, and introduce to the innocent people of this world that there's another way of looking at life, that life isn't just like some sort of impersonal, mechanistic way of seeing things, that there's life behind everything, and there's life everywhere, and there's love everywhere, and God's love is everywhere. And so people need to hear this message, because people are becoming much more and more alienated all the time. They're feeling very alone. They're feeling very, disconnected. And so to know that there's a supreme being who cares very deeply about all his parts and parcels, not only the human beings, but also the animals down to the microbes. To know that, really people need to have that message. So we started doing this project in 2009. We started construction. And how do I change the is it this thing? Yeah. This thing? Yes. It is? Okay. Aha. Okay. So this is A.C. Bhaktivinoda Swami Prabhupada. And he wanted this Vedic planetarium in Mayapur. And so we're all working very hard. Yes?
You can look right there.
Oh, okay. So we're all working very hard to make this into a reality. This is Nityananda, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's main associate, describing about the temple. And so Srila Prabhupada gave us the dimensions. He wanted a big dome. And I couldn't understand this in the beginning, but now that we're building it, I can understand that he wanted to cover a huge space with this dome. So Mayapur was founded in 1971. They're already getting 1 million visitors a year that come to Mayapur. And already there's a temple there. There's a thriving community. We have people from Russia, people from China, from all over the place come and live there, stay there, visit. So in 2009, we started this new temple project. This is Srila Prabhupada. He was down in the hole in the ground burying or putting the Ananta Sesh in the ground in 1972, I believe. So the project was really founded then, but we didn't really start construction until just a few years ago. So this is the main design, and you'll see that the center dome is where there's going to be a huge kirtan hall for chanting kirtan, doing kirtan, underneath the main dome. And then there's also galleries going around it that will have depictions of the different planetary systems, because coming from the Brihad Bhagavatamrita, which is a wonderful book, recently translated a few years ago by a nice devotee who's no longer alive, but it talks about all the different planetary systems, what they're like, and so this will depict all these systems. And then on the right-hand side, there's a temple for Lord Nrsingadev, and on the left-hand side, there's an actual planetarium with scientific exhibits. And this is all going to be, and that we have wonderful gardens and parks. And it's a large building, huge building, as a matter of fact. This is going to be the largest kirtan hall in the world. The largest dome, I think it's the largest dome in Southeast Asia. I don't know if it's the largest dome in the world, but the total height is 330 feet. The main temple room is going to be an acre in size, and it's taller than the Hagia Sophia. So it's a huge building, huge building. And these are just some of the architecture. These are preliminary drawings. I'll show you how things have progressed. This is Lord Nrsingadev. The deities are already there. They were installed many years ago. This is a huge Lord Nrsingadev, beautiful deity, and this will be his temple, all done in black marble. And this is the planetarium dome, and the theater will go inside the dome, and then we'll show planetary exhibitions and different shows. Jai Pataka Maharaj, who's one of the original founders of Mayapur Project, is actually down in Florida now visiting places to get ideas. This is the main temple room floor, and above the deities will be this exhibit of the different planetary systems according to the Vedas. So you on the bottom you have Ananta Sesh, and then Mahavishnu, and then also the planets rising up above him. So, and this is looking down onto the temple room floor. So that's the main temple. This is the dome in the temple. This will have a coffered ceiling, so the acoustics will be very good. These are the galleries going up. This is the deity house down here. And there'll be, 3 main deities, Radhamadava and Panchatattva, Lord Chaitanya in 5 features, and then the Guru Parampara. So there they all are. Panchatattva will be in the center, the Radhamadava on the side, and Guru Parampara on the left-hand side. So as I say, we want to make it into an international place for people to come and learn about spiritual life, to learn about the Vedas. This is how far the project has gone so far. We had some seed money, and now we're going out to collect the rest of the money. So I'd say the superstructure is probably about 75% done. And this is the temple room floor. And this is the coming up. And the amazing thing is we haven't had any floods. Usually this area is very prone to flooding. But we haven't had any floods at all since we started construction. This is a view from far away. The other dome you see to the right-hand side of the construction is Srila Prabhupada's Samadhi. And this is from the Ganges, beautiful shot with the construction and the samadhi. And then these are the domes that are going up. And we have these little Bengali roofs on the stairwells also. So this is just some of the construction we'll show you, and this is the samadhi and the Ganges in the background. So I really would like to invite all of you to come to Mayapur. It's a beautiful spot, as you can see. And it's a very exciting place to be now. We have many, many people that come from all over the world there. It's the garden of India, really. It's beautiful, lush, green. They have wonderful mangoes and stuff. So anyway, that's just in a nutshell, very quickly, what the project is. And that's really my main focus these days, is this project. And I think we're a little short on time. Otherwise, I would go ahead and open it up if there's any questions or anything. But you can pigeonhole me after the meetings are over with. But once again, I'm very, very happy to be here. And, you know, spiritual life has really remade my life. I mean, you know, as I said, I grew up in a family that was more than ample of everything, and yet people were not very happy. So the spiritual life has given me a purpose in life, not only a purpose, but also great happiness, great satisfaction, great friends. Everything has come from this. So I'm very, very grateful to, you know, the culture of India, and you know, I think that there is so much that the culture can offer to people around the world. So thank you very much for inviting me, and I wish you all a lot of good luck. Hare Krishna.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Ford. This was very inspiring. Before we have a 5-minute restroom break, and I know we are all waiting to hear His Holiness Radhanath Swami. We've known him for 3 decades. We can have a 5-minute restroom break if any of you would like to do that. But before we break, I'd like to invite my long-term friend Madhupati Das to just come here and invite these people. He has a program next Sunday. And I'd love to just have you talk to them for just 2 minutes, invite them to your program, and then we'll just have a break for 5 minutes, and then we'll begin Radhanath Maharaj's. We are also expecting Mr. H.R. Shah to be here with us. Kindly please just check up if he's coming. Madhupati, Prabhu, please come for a minute and just invite all these good ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you very much, Hare Krishna. Yeah, as Mr. Ford mentioned about the Mayapur project, in New Jersey we have 2 wonderful projects coming up. In central New Jersey, we are just purchasing a church in Plainfield, New Jersey, and it seats 600 people, and it's big. Around 2-acre lot with 18,000 square feet building. And next Sunday, you're all invited for a benefit dinner for that temple. That's going to be at Clarion Inn from 4:30 to 9. So I would like to invite you all for that wonderful program. His Holiness Bhakti Charu Maharaj is going to be there for that particular program, along with other senior devotees, and it will be my pleasure to have you all there. Hare Krishna.
Gentlemen, we'll have a 5-minute break, and then we'll begin the last program of the evening before we break for a banquet dinner. So maybe you can just use the restroom. It's just outside here, and we will begin in 5 minutes. Please take your seats. And now the address by His Holiness Radhanath Swami is just about to begin. Kindly please take your seats, and we will just begin very shortly. Radhanath Swami, from the beginning of his life, has been committed to change the state of the world. He has been serving the humanity at large with support of some of the industry leaders by inspiring them through his actions and motivational talks. His book, Journey Home, traces Radhanath Swami's path from his middle class Jewish upbringing in a Chicago suburb as Richard Slavin to his participation in the civil rights movement in the 60s in the USA, to his apprenticeships with Himalayan yogis, Dalai Lama, Mother Teresa, and several other known personalities he experienced along the way, and finally, how he decided to live a life of compassion. He has been a regular speaker at some of the leading international forums, and he is held in the highest esteem by some of the eminent personalities. Within the recent months, Radhanath Swami was invited to meet one-on-one with US President Barack Obama and President of India, Srimati Pratibha Patil. Recently also addressed the MPs at the House of Commons in London, at the British Parliament. Rajiv and I and many other people have known Maharaj for about 3 decades now. It's been our good fortune because he has been inspiring the lives of literally hundreds of thousands of people. I just want to show a 2-minute presentation on Radhanath Swami. Can you please dim the lights, Richard? And please begin the presentation, and then we will. Ladies and gentlemen, please rise as I invite Radhanath Swami to come and deliver his speech to us. Please welcome him with a big round of applause. I will now request Rashmikant to please come and garland Radhanath Maharaj.
Om Makyantimidandasya Jnananjanachalakaya Chakshurun Militam Jena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha.
Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paschatyate Satharine. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate. Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sudhe Devi Pranamami Hari Priye. Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. It's my great honor and pleasure to be with all of you this evening. Thank you to all of you who have organized this event, and to all of you who are participating by being with us this evening. Time is so precious. Chanakya Pandit explained that one moment wasted cannot be regained with all the wealth in the world. So the greatest wealth we have is each moment and the choices that we make in that moment. Recently, I was in Chicago, and I was asked to speak at a very major international corporation, to the leaders of that company. The CEO came in a private jet, and there was the CEO, the CFO, the CMO, and the COO, and me. I haven't had a bank account or signed a check since 1969. And the CEO of this corporation, he was asking me about, earlier this year, my speech at the House of Lords in the British Parliament. And he asked me if I would speak something from what I spoke at that time. And I gave about a 40-minute talk, and one particular line, everyone clapped, very enthusiastically. And afterwards, so many people were telling me how much they really appreciated this one particular sentence. There was counts and countesses and princesses and princes and lords and ladies and parliament members and so many people. But one sentence really touched them. And it's just such a common sense idea. It really fascinated me. Would you like to hear? I told these people in Chicago this one sentence, that you can You can find out how rich you are by counting how many things you have that money cannot buy. As soon as I said this, the CEO became so enthusiastic. He said, the greatest, most important things in life, money cannot buy. Then he went on a whole list. He said, money cannot buy happiness. Money cannot buy love. Money cannot buy health. Money cannot buy a satisfying family. Money cannot buy friends. He's a billionaire, and he really works hard for money. I didn't say anything, but I just kind of looked at him like, why do you spend so much time for money? So he understood my question. And he said, money cannot buy the most important things in life, but it's nice to have all the things that it can buy. So I thought that was a good answer. It was very honest. There is an apparent contradiction between spirituality and the pursuit of wealth. The most fundamental need of every living being is to love and to be loved. And without that, whatever else we may have, it's like a beautiful decorated case with very little inside. Or like a little girl whose parents are so busy making money they don't have time for her. She's dressed very pretty, but inside the dress she's suffering. There is so much suffering in this world because of a lack of substance, a lack of purpose, a lack of spiritual connection in people's lives. Today's lecture is entitled Spirituality and the Pursuit of Success. Will the two ever meet? It's an interesting question. In the Bible, Jesus says that it is easier to put a camel through the eye of a needle than for a rich person to enter the kingdom of God. And then he said, for man it is impossible, but for God all things are possible. He also says, don't make your treasures in this world, a place where it will be stolen by thieves, corroded by rust, or eaten by moths. Make your treasure in the kingdom of God. The kingdom of God is within us. Our real wealth is within us. There's an analogy of the musk deer I learned from a sadhu in the Himalayas. The musk deer has an organ that gives a fragrance that's so sweet. People pay up to $40,000 for a kilo of this excretion. The musk deer wanders through the forest everywhere, searching, searching, searching for this sweet fragrance, not knowing it's within himself. That's very much the story of life within this world. The Brahma Sutra says, Anandamayo Bhyashat, that every living being is seeking pleasure. But what is the pleasure we're really seeking? If we can't find it within ourselves, we cannot find it anywhere, no matter what we have. And if we can find it within ourselves, then we will realize it and see it everywhere. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, Kunti Devi, in her prayers to Lord Krishna, she prayed, Janmaishwarya Shruti Shrurbir, Tvam Akinchana Gocharam. It means that the greatest disqualifications for spiritual enlightenment are beauty, fame, knowledge, and wealth. That enlightenment, that God is the property of akinchana, those who are in poverty. So this kind of sounds like trying to get that camel through the eye of the needle. What does it mean? What Jesus and Kunti and all of the great acharyas are teaching us, it's what our panel was discussing. It's not success or beauty or knowledge or wealth in itself that is a disqualification, but it's the tendency of greed, egoism, and selfishness that so often comes with these things that are the greatest disqualifications. The culture of wealth is a culture of gratitude and humility. Recently we celebrated Diwali, the New Year. The origin of this festival is from Ramayana, where we learn the story and the lessons of Ravana and Hanuman. Sita is the goddess of fortune. In this sense, from the Vedic perspective, wealth is sacred. Wealth is divine inherently because it's the grace of God. And the predominating origin, the personification of all good fortune is Lakshmi or Sita. Sita was the embodiment of goodness, compassion, forgiveness, of all the beautiful things of this world, knowledge, richness, health. This is all good fortune. Ravana kidnapped her and tried to exploit her for his own selfish purposes. He separated God's grace from God, Ram. Hanuman, he dedicated himself not to exploit Sita, but to honor and restore Sita by bringing her back in connection with Ram. So these two forces, through this analogy of this history, are within each of us. There's a Ravana side and there's a Hanuman side. There's the part of us, our lower nature, like that bad dog that's prone to arrogance, greed, selfish lust, envy, anger. And there's our divine nature. Goodness, love, compassion, generosity. Which aspect of our own inner nature we choose to feed through the choices we make is what is going to determine our life. The Bhagavad Gita gives us a very practical way by which we can live within this world, but not be subjected to that lower tendency that so much predominates this world. In the 5th chapter, there's a verse that my guru, Srila Prabhupada, used to call the peace formula. Bhoktaram jagatapasam sarva lokamaheshwaram. In this verse, it explains how we are not proprietors, but we are caretakers. We are not masters, but we are servants. This is the natural understanding of one who has gratitude and humility. Whatever we have, we are grateful to those who taught us, to our parents who gave us birth, to the great saints and sages who have given us enlightened way to use it, to all of our customers who have factually we're depending on, and to God, who's the source and the origin of everything, who gives me the power. Krishna says in the Gita, I'm the intelligence of the intelligence, I'm the strength of the strong, I'm the ability in everyone. When we have gratitude, we naturally become humble. Because we understand it's not just about me. It's about us. Then we realize more and more that the property that I have in the form of my intelligence, my abilities, my wealth, it's entrusted to me for a higher purpose. And when we focus on that higher purpose, we're actually liberated from the sufferings and the vices of this world. But in order to really focus on that higher purpose in an atmosphere where there are so many other callings, satsang, or association that uplifts us is so important. And giving some quality time, like Mr. Ford was explaining, to actually reconnect with our own spiritual nature through spiritual practice. It's very important to keep that connection. There's a wonderful story. About 1,000 years ago, one saint in South India, his name was Ramanujacharya. He was going on a pilgrimage with several of his followers from Srirangam to Tirupati. And on the way they came to a town. And Ramanujacharya had a student there who was an extremely wealthy man. His name was Yagyesh. So in the outskirts of the town, Ramanuja said to one of his disciples, he said, go to his house and tell him that I'm coming with some of my followers, and ask him to prepare for me to spend the night with him. So they went, and this man became so excited. My guru's coming. and immediately started calling all of his servants and making arrangements for an elaborate feast and wonderful reception and decorating the home. So the disciples went back to Ramanuja and reported to him. Ramanuja asked, "What did he give you? Did he give you food? Did he give you water? Did he give you a reception?" And they said, "He was so excited about you coming that he forgot about us. He just started immediately going into action to make arrangements for you." Ramanuja was silent. Then he said, "There's a very simple man who's also my disciple on the other side of town. Tell him we're coming to his house." So they went and told him. They came back, and Ramanuja said, "Tell me about what his response was." He said, "All he had is a little straw mat. He sat us down, he gave us water, he gave us food, and then he told us, please, tell Ramanuja how grateful I am." So Ramanuja said, "We will go to his house because he has understood." The next morning, Yagesh, the wealthy man, he was completely bewildered. He had everything arranged. And he was waiting and waiting, hour after hour. The whole night passed, and then the next morning, he found out that Ramanuja spent the night at this simple man's house. So he think, what have I done to offend him in this way? So he came the next morning to the poor man's house. And he was crying. He said, "Ramanuja, I made all the arrangements. Why didn't you come? What have I done?" And Ramanuja explained to him, "You don't know what real wealth is. It's my duty to teach you. Real wealth is not about what you have. It's about who you are." Wealth is about love. To the degree you have love and compassion for God and other living beings in your heart, that is true wealth. If you love me, you know how much I love all of my followers. Why did you neglect them? Do you think serving me and neglecting them is going to make me happy? Srila Prabhupada would say that God, who we call Krishna, does not accept what we offer. He accepts the purpose, the intent in which it is offered. When I was just a little child, I learned this from my mother. And later on, when I met my guru, I understood the incredible philosophical purport to it when it's connected on a spiritual dimension. On my mother's birthday, you know how we men are. We always forget these things. And ladies, it seems, always remember these things. So I remember my mother would always very much judge our affection for her by how we remember these special days, and my father would always forget it. So it was her birthday, and I came home from school, and I realized it was her birthday, because I saw she was kind of sad, because nobody remembered. So I ran in the backyard, and she had a rose garden. She planted the roses, she grew the roses, and I just went out there and ripped a rose from the garden. It only had like about 7 or 8 roses in it, because we just had a small little garden. And I gave it to my mother. She cried in happiness. She put it to her face. She put it to her heart. And she said, it's not the thing that has value. It's the love in which it's given. It was like her mantra. It's the thought that counts. Really, love is the only thing of true value. It's the only thing that could give any satisfaction to the heart. To love and to be loved. Ramanuja explained this to his wealthy disciple. He said, if you love me, you will love and be compassionate to those who are connected. That's the meaning of love. And this is the important thing for all of us tonight. He told, Yagesh began to cry and said, I understand now. I deeply understand. And Ramanuja said, when I'm coming back from Tirupati, I will stay at your house. And he did. Wealth is not a disqualification. Wealth is a tremendous blessing if it is utilized with love. It is said we should earn with integrity. Competition should be executed with high principles, and our spending should be with compassion. We have a couple hospices and a couple hospitals in India. In our hospice, they use morphine to actually help people to have a higher quality of life as they're dying. In New York City, not too far from here, probably in Princeton too, there are drug dealers who use that same morphine to destroy the lives of the youth by inducing them to become drug addicts. Is morphine good or bad? We have our Dr. Mehta. He used a knife to cure people from disease. Somebody else will use the same knife to cut someone's throat. So everything within this world is potentially divine if we have that consciousness of how to use it with compassion. In the Bible it is said, what profiteth a man if he gains the whole world but loses his eternal soul? And the Bhagavad Gita echoes the same message. That real joy is within. Real peace is within. True wealth is our consciousness, what we value, and how we honor the sacredness of life within others. It is said that if you lose your wealth, you lose nothing. If you lose your health, you lose something. If you lose your values, you lose everything. The Gita teaches that the foundation in which we should build our lives is a foundation of understanding the truth of who we really are. Because otherwise, our values can easily be compromised when the storms of life come upon us. And storms will come. If the house is built on a strong foundation, it will sustain in any storm. But if our life is built on a foundation of shifting sand, then it will collapse. Who am I is the basic message of all the great spiritual teachings of the world. And the Gita explains that the conscious force within us, that's seeing through the eyes and hearing through the ears and tasting through the tongue and thinking through the brain, that conscious force is the Atma, or the soul. And the nature of our true self is Satchit Ananda, that we are eternal, full of knowledge and full of happiness. And when we connect to our own true self, Mamaivam so jiva loke jiva bhuta sanatana, we realize that I'm a part of the Supreme Being. I'm a part of God, who we call Krishna. His many names. And therefore, I am divine. I'm above and beyond birth and death. I'm above and beyond anger and envy and arrogance and greed. My inherent potential is to be an instrument of God's love and to experience the infinite love of God within myself. And when we realize that, we understand the sacredness of everyone. Aham bija pratapita. On a spiritual level, we are all brothers and sisters. Whether one is black and white or red or yellow or male or female, rich or poor, from a spiritual perspective, life is sacred. Whether one is a human or a cow or an elephant or a dog or a cat, there's a part of God everywhere. True compassion is based on this spiritual realization, beyond our moods and our sentiments, of actually feeling for others. Last year I was on a train from New York to Washington, D.C., and two men in the seat in front of me were talking. They'd read a newspaper article about in an Oriental country, there was a slaughterhouse for dogs because they like to eat dogs. And these people were so outraged by this, they considered it so totally uncivilized and terrible and barbaric. And I didn't say anything because they didn't ask me any questions, but I was thinking in my mind, yes, we should feel for the dogs, but they were eating cows as they were talking. What about the cows? Just because we don't have them as pets in our home to lick us and everything, it doesn't mean that they feel any less pain or they love their children any less than the dogs. Real compassion is not selective. Real compassion is when we actually understand and appreciate the unity of life. And we have respect and honor for the life in others. Not only because of our familiarity with them. It's natural to be familiar. When I was a little boy, I wasn't getting very good grades. Our next door neighbor was the same age as me and was getting excellent grades. And I was pretty naughty. And our next door neighbor, he was really a well-behaved person. But it's not that my mother and father loved him more than me. They naturally loved me because I was theirs. So that's natural. But as we actually develop our own inner consciousness and we realize our own divinity, we start to see all of humanity as our family. We start to see, as was explained in our panel, all of creation as an extended part of our family. That's where true compassion can actually be discovered. We have a body, we have a mind, and we also have an Atma, or a soul. So the deepest compassion is compassion for the body, mind, and soul. We have a hospital in Mumbai called Bhaktivedanta Hospital, and we tried to develop it according to this principle. People are suffering physically. Our compassion should be to try to help them. But actually, mental anxiety causes more suffering even than physical suffering. I have seen people who are at the last stages dying of cancer, who were in spiritual ecstasy and gratitude because they were connected to such a higher place. And I see all the time in my travels around the world, people even with excellent physical health who are really seriously suffering because of the mind. Compassion to the body, compassion to the mind, to one's emotions, but also compassion for the soul. Our Dr. Mehta gave that beautiful example of how when a person is at the crematorium and he's covered with a white sheet, there's no pockets. And the sheet and the body under it is soon to be burned. Kamaladala jala jivana talamala. That all the things in this world are like drops of water on a lotus leaf. At any moment they could be gone. So the deepest compassion is for the body, mind, and also to give people an understanding of their true value, their true nature, of how to discover real happiness and real wealth within themselves. In Latur in Gujarat, there was an earthquake some years ago, and our Bhaktivedanta hospital went there, and we had our orthopedic surgeons doing all surgeries, and there were so many other people volunteering and coming from all different directions to help the people. But what those people appreciated the most, whether they were Muslims or Christians or Jains, Parsis, Sikhs, Hindus, or even atheists, we were giving them an understanding of God's presence within themselves. There was a spiritual education, because even if we fixed their limbs, many of them, their children, their husband, their wives, their parents were dead. Their houses were finished. Just healing a broken arm was not going to solve their suffering. Yes, we were trying to help build their houses and all those things, but what they appreciated most is that they were given an understanding of what is within themselves, of how they can still make a difference for the eternal souls of their loved ones who may have been gone, and how they can actually be there for each other. The more we try to help someone else, the more we transcend our own problems. In giving, we do receive. Human evolution is not about how small we could make our chips. It's not about the development of our technology and our sciences alone. Some of the greatest engineering universities in the world I go to speak, and the professors tell me that there's serious problems with depression, drug addiction, suicides. Technology is wonderful. Science is wonderful, providing it's built on the foundation of true human values. Real evolution is an evolution of consciousness. From the need to get more and more things to fill the void within my heart, to the joy of giving and sharing what we have found within ourselves. Through our art, through our wealth, through our ability, through our influence. When I was in Silicon Valley, I gave an example, and they seemed to like it, so I'm going to repeat it. I was recently in the Muir Woods near San Francisco, and there was a group of Chinese tourists in a circle around a forest ranger. And he was speaking about the underground secret of the redwood trees. Now, I'm coming from the 1960s in America, so I'm habitually attracted to underground kind of things. Would you like to hear this underground secret? Everyone's attracted to secrets. The redwood tree is the largest, tallest, widest tree on earth. And interestingly, they grow in places where there's very loose soil, where there's earthquakes, where there's massive storms. And most trees, the roots have to go very deep in order to sustain themselves year after year after year. The redwood trees, the roots do not grow deep. Now, some of these trees are 2,200 years old. That means they've been here before Jesus, before any white people came to America. And in California, they've lived through massive earthquakes and incredible blizzards and storms. How do they keep growing? And through countless forest fires. It's an underground secret. The roots of the redwood trees grow underground outward. Each root reaches out for the roots of other trees. And as soon as the roots come in contact with another tree, they intertwine with each other. They create an inseparable bond. The little tiny redwoods have the giant redwoods intertwining their roots with them. So every tree in the forest is supported by every other tree. And practically nothing could disturb it. Unity is strength. Humanity, we could learn a lot from trees. The strength of each of us individually and collectively is how much we actually feel care and compassion for each other. The more we help our brothers and sisters, the stronger we become. And the more strength we give to others. This understanding is true wealth. When my guru, Srila Prabhupada, was in London, I think it was in 1969, he was asked by a reporter, "Why have you come here?" And Srila Prabhupada replied, he said, "You British people, you ruled over India for about 200 years. And during that 200 years, you took most all the treasures of India. Much of the wealth of India is in the British museums." He said, "But you forgot the most valuable treasure in all of India. You took our jewels, you took so much, but you forgot the greatest treasure, the spiritual culture of India." He said, "I have come to London to give you what you forgot to take." And one of the beautiful things that really attracted me to bhakti and to the tradition of spirituality in India is its inclusiveness. I write in this book that I wrote, The Journey Home. I was actually born in Chicago. And when I was a teenager, I really was looking for a deep purpose and meaning to my life. And I saw so much hypocrisy. Even in religion. In the name of a loving God, people were becoming so judgmental and hateful. So I really felt either I have to reject this spirituality altogether, or I have to find a common essence that's there. And I had such deep faith that there was something wonderful and spiritual, because I had read about saints of all the great traditions and how they lived, and what were their values, and what was their contribution to the world. So I deeply went into Judaism and Christianity, and hitchhiking from London to India. I went through Turkey, Iran, Afghanistan, Pakistan. It took 6 months, and I was studying Islam. Recently, I was in the London University, SOAS, and I was telling the story, and one girl came up to me afterward, and she said, "I loved your story." She said, "I am the president of the National Hitchhikers Association." And she said, I'm so inspired. I want to take our group on the same route you did, hitchhiking from London to India. She asked for my guidance. I said a little prayer because when somebody asks for guidance, you're responsible for what you say. So, taking the conservative side, I said, you should hitchhike to Heathrow Airport. And then fly. And when I was in India, I was living with yogis and with sadhus, and I was living with Zen Buddhists and Tibetan Buddhists and so many other kinds of people. And when I found this path of bhakti, and I found the Bhagavad Gita, the Srimad Bhagavatam, one of the things that so profoundly affected me is how inclusive it was. In the 4th chapter of the Gita, yada yada hi dharmasya glanirvavati bharata. Krishna says that I have descended, God descends in this world in many forms, with many names, throughout the ages, for the same purpose, to establish Dharma, to enlighten us who we really are. What is our relationship with God? The essence, to love God with all your mind, all your heart, mind, and soul, and to love your neighbor as yourself. This is the first and great commandment of the New and Old Testament. You see, if you actually love God, you will naturally love your neighbor as yourself. If we don't love our neighbor as ourselves, that means we really don't have any true love of God. Like Ramanuja explained to that rich man, if you love me, you'll love those who are connected to me. Savai pungsang puro dharmo yato bhaktir hokshaje. The Bhagavad Purana tells that true Dharma is unmotivated, uninterrupted love for the Supreme Lord and compassion to all beings. That is Dharma. We tune into that divinity within ourselves by chanting the holy names of the Lord. That's the ultimate purpose of meditation. And it's the greatest potential that we all have to be instruments of love. And that is a principle that is beyond sectarianism, because we take ourself out of the center and we put God in the center. And as soon as we do that, then everyone else becomes a part of that center. When you water the root of the tree, naturally that water goes to every single part of the tree, the leaves, the branches, the twigs, and the flowers. So Srila Prabhupada explained this, that the spiritual culture of India is the essence of the spiritual culture of all great spiritual traditions. To understand my own eternal nature, to access God's love and to be an instrument of that love. When he was coming to America in 1965, he had 40 rupees. When I came to India in 1970, there were 6.5 rupees to $1. And you could get 8 on the black market. Anyways, 40 rupees was not much. It was about $7 in those days. 38 days on a cargo ship. He had 2 heart attacks and seasickness, and when he came to New York, he didn't know anybody. He didn't even know where to go. But actually, even though he was a 70-year-old man with no wealth physically, he came to America to give the charity of the greatest wealth, the greatest of not his love, God's love. God's love became his love because he was tuned in, and he wanted to teach us how to tune in and discover our own true wealth. When he was in London, one of his followers was George Harrison of the Beatles. At that time, the Beatles were at the summit of their fame and their success. And George, he was born a simple poor boy in Liverpool, and he joined the Beatles, and suddenly, within a couple years, they were the most famous people in the world. And they had huge sums of money. And they were buying big estates. And they had the best cars. And they had beautiful ladies. But George had some spiritual depth. He just saw that I really don't have anything. Unless I have a deep spiritual connection. All the stuff is just distracting me from the loneliness that's within my own heart. There's a saying that in a civilized society, or let us say an enlightened society, people use things and love people. But unfortunately, the tendency is that we use people and love things. And when you get to where he was at in success, you really see that all around. So he started chanting this Hare Krishna mantra and feeling something so deep and so beautiful. And he told Prabhupada that he wanted to join the ashram. And Srila Prabhupada told him, you have such skill as a musician, you have such wealth, and you have such influence. It's a greater service to God and humanity to use those things. And he did. And our Alfred Ford, one of my dearest friends and god brothers, Ambarish, he came to Prabhupada. He's the great-grandson of Henry Ford. And he also was willing to just become a monk. And Srila Prabhupada explained to him that you have so much. Service to God is not just renouncing the things, it's renouncing the selfishness, the arrogance, so that we could use what God gives us for the joy that the heart is yearning for, the joy of being an instrument of love, an instrument of compassion. The legacy we leave our children is in the values that we live by. I see everywhere in the world, parents work so hard for money, and then the children become enemies fighting over it. is that what, I'm a Swami, so I don't have any children. But as far as I know, is that what parents like? I know my father, he just celebrated his 90th birthday a couple days ago in Chicago. And he has one son that's a businessman, one son that's a musician, and one son that's a Swami. But his joy in life is that we love each other. To be honest with you, we are so diversified, we have absolutely nothing to fight about. But the reality is that if our real legacy is the love that we somehow or other, the values, the love, the compassion that we inspire within our children and the generations to follow. And this is one of the principal teachings of the Gita. Yad yad acharati srestas tatat evetirojana. That whatever people in leading positions do, common people follow their example. As parents, our greatest responsibility is the legacy of love and compassion that we inspire within our children. Whether they're little swamis with nothing, materially, or whether they're multimillionaires or billionaires. That's not so important. What's important is the fulfillment that we find within ourselves that we can share with our children, and that legacy of compassion and love. Like the redwood trees, as we help others, we become strong. Thank you very much. And our Ambarish or Alfred Ford, we can see how he has taken that spirit of compassion. He's giving his whole heart. This temple he was showing us, it's not just a building. It's an educational center. It's a hospital. It's a place where people could actually learn to value the real treasures that God has given us. Thank you so much.
Can you take a question or two?
If there's time, I can do.
Maybe just one or two questions.
If there's one or two questions.
Speak into the mic. Just press that button, the red button.
Greetings. My name is Coco. I'm just curious, did you have a spiritual calling? Did you read a book? Was it something that you heard that made you decide to become a Swami?
I think it was all of the above. There was a spiritual calling. Interestingly, just last year, I spoke at the House of Commons in the British Parliament, and I was wondering what to say when I saw this very esteemed audience. And I happened to look out the window, and there was the River Thames. And I looked across the river from where I was standing, speaking to these people, and I saw a stone boundary wall. And that's in 1970 where I would sit till late at night, exactly in that spot. Everyone was waiting for me to speak, and I was just looking out the window. I was standing at the lectern like this, looking out the window. And I went back, and I was thinking of what my consciousness was at that time. I was a teenager. There was a Vietnam War, there was a civil rights movement, there was so much upheaval in society between the younger generation and the older generation, based on ideologies and principles. And I realized I didn't really fit in either one. The society that I joined to rebel against hypocrisy, I saw had as much hypocrisy as who we were rebelling against. And in London, during the day, I was making the scene, as they say, as far as being popular and enjoying life, better than I ever had done before in my whole life. But after enjoying like anything all day, I came back and sat on that wall and looked down at the river and wondered, what am I really supposed to be doing? I felt so empty. And I was crying for direction. And I realized at that time that if I want to do something for myself or the world, I have to find myself. And that is a spiritual thing. So I started reading a lot of different kind of spiritual books. I started going to synagogues and cathedrals and monasteries in Italy. And eventually I was living on an island in Crete, which is part of Greece. And I lived in a cave, and I would meditate and pray on top of a mountain and read spiritual books. And one day I was weeping for direction. And as the sun was setting, I heard 3 words from within myself. It was silent, but it was the loudest thing I ever heard. And I realized if I follow these 3 words, my life will never be the same. I believed they were God's words because I was praying so intensely. Those 3 words were, go to India. The next morning, I had no money. I didn't know where India was. I didn't have a map. I had never met a person from India. I just started hitchhiking to India. That calling is within all of us. It's just that we're so distracted by so many things in this world, we don't hear the calling of our hearts. The calling is not to go to India or to go here or there. The calling is to find that home where real love is within ourselves. We really don't have to physically go anywhere to find it. If we can help each other to hear that calling, to follow that calling toward love, toward God, toward true values, toward a life of compassion, then we can find the real treasure of fulfillment that is beyond birth, that is beyond death. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you very much.
I can't even see you because the lights, but thank you, thank you. One more question? Yes?
Please sit down and just speak directly into the mic. Just press the red button.
Yes. Good evening. It's an honor to be here, first of all.
Thank you.
Just wanted to get your advice to the youth, and that we really count on guidance just as yourself. And once again, I'm honored. And one last question for the youth as entrepreneurs, everything as a whole, as the world is changing, what are the best, your advice? Thank you.
Actually, just about 2 months ago, I was in Assisi in Italy, where St. Francis is from. And he spoke something I really felt was relevant. He told his followers, at every moment you should be preaching. And in rare moments, you should say something. That means our real message to the world is in our example. If you're telling your children, don't smoke, it's not good for you, while you're holding your cigarette in your hand, it's not going to have too much effect. The world needs living examples. And our spiritual practice and our spiritual association, or satsang, helps us to reconnect with the true values that make life sacred and fulfilling. My guru, Srila Prabhupada, he used to give his parents all the credit for his spiritual life. He said whenever he would wake up in the morning, he would see his parents doing their devotion. And every evening, they were always serving people, especially sadhus. So this had such a deep foundational effect in his life. Recently, I went to one temple. It was in America. And the people who were the trustees of the temple, the president, treasurer, secretary, they were all giving me a tour. And they took me to an auditorium. And all of these people were PhD professors, doctors, Indians living in America, mostly from the south part of India. And they were just showing me all the facilities and all the pujas that were going on every day, and it was quite elaborate and quite incredible, and so many Brahmins and so many pundits. And I asked them a simple question, because most of them had been in America since the 70s. I said, your children were born and raised in America. How are they actually connecting to your devotion and your culture? And every one of them said they want nothing to do with the rituals. Because they have a Western education and they're taught to doubt and science and all of these things, and they just think we're superstitious. But then they said, but to whatever extent we actually let us say, translate those spiritual practices into a genuine philosophy of kindness and love and compassion, as they grow up, they embrace it enthusiastically. So as entrepreneurs, you're enthusiastic to succeed. At least that's my understanding of what an entrepreneur is. The foundation of your values. The foundation of your love, your compassion. How you actually live your life. What you do with your life. Who you choose to keep close company within your life. That is going to be the values that your children really embrace. And I have seen wonderful people like this. And being a teenager in America, sometimes they really get rebellious. But when those samskaras are deeply there in their hearts, as they go through the storms of their teenage distractions, they naturally will come back to those values. The example we give is our legacy. Does that answer your question?
Thank you.
And the deeper the values, the deeper the realizations, the deeper the spiritual love we gain, the more grace we could fill our children with. Thank you so very much. Just now?
Yeah. So we are at the end of the program. Please bear with me. We are running late by some 15 odd minutes. Before we wrap, there is a survey form a feedback form in your folder. Would you be so kind enough to just very quickly fill this and leave it there for us to know how you like the program and whether you'd like us to be in touch with you and meet you, give you information about our future programs. Just very quickly, let's have your email ID so at least we can be in touch with you. Is Mr. Devendra Sharma there? Would you please get the mementos? It is my...
I'll be back in a minute.
Sure. We have a very special person here, Stuart Sender. Stuart, would you just stand up for a minute? Stuart has made a beautiful documentary on the journey home, which is Maharaj's book. The books are available outside. You might want to get a copy for yourself. Stuart has made a beautiful, documentary. We unfortunately have no time to see that, but I would request you to speak with him. He has such passion to make that story of Radhanath Swami's journey from Chicago to India known to the world. So, hopefully, because we're running late, we'd love to show that to you next time. It is now time to do the honors, and I request the volunteers to please come here. So, I'm going to request Radhanath Swami to please come here to just honor some of the guests who are some of the sponsors of the event who have worked tirelessly to make this happen for us. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my very great pleasure to honor some of the people who made this event possible. First of all, I'd like to invite Sumit Ganguly, President of Gadget Technologies. He has been very gracious. He's helped us with this event right from the beginning. And I'd like to present you a frame which Maharaj would like to. The other one? Sumit is also an art collector. You should go to his house in Belmead and see some of the beautiful paintings he has in his home. Maharaj. I now call upon Akash Tiwari. Is Akash here? Akash will take this small token of her appreciation on behalf of Naveen Kumar and Nitya Infotech and of course Akash. If any of you have these paintings, we'd be happy to exchange them for you. I now call upon our very dear friend Rashmikant Kamdar, who has been following these Artha forums across the globe. He's been attending Maharaj's programs. Rashmikant, please come here, and Maharaj would like to honor you with this small token of our appreciation. And now I call upon Dr. Naveen Mehta to please come here. Yeah, Ms. Rashmi, please also come on the stage. Thank you. Lastly, our dear friend Ron, please come on the stage and just accept this token of our appreciation from Maharaj. Thank you. A very special thanks to Madhupati Prabhu, the temple president of ISKCON Central New Jersey and ISKCON Tobacco, for mobilizing help through all his team members to make this event possible. Madhupati Prabhu, we are very grateful to you for your help, and to Devinder Sharma, who's here. He is a Hanuman. Make these things happen. So at this time, we will take your leave. Thank you very much for coming here and gracing this occasion. You all made it very special for us, and I hope you enjoyed the program. We are going with really nice feelings. I live in India, I live in Amritsar, Punjab, and I'm going to carry these feelings with me. This beautiful evening where all of you were here, thank you for the gift of your time, and Hare Krishna to all of you. Yeah. So at this time, we have a sit-down dinner. So there are volunteers who will guide you out to go and please, there's a buffet counter there. Please take your plate, sit down and with your friends, and please enjoy the dinner before you leave. If any of you would like to meet Radhanath Swami in person, we'll be happy to introduce you. A special thanks to Mr. H.R. Shah of TV Asia. H.R. Shah has met Srila Prabhupada in the very early years when Prabhupada was on the 55th Street in New York. And he has very fond memories of meeting our founder, Srila Prabhupada. And he spent some half an hour with us yesterday discussing this. Unfortunately, he couldn't make it today, but he has been represented by TV Asia crew. So, Rashmikant.
Maharaj is going to do 2 minutes thing. This will be a lively telecast to about 2 million people.
So, TV Asia is watched by over 2 million viewers, and Maharaj is going to give a small interview. Thank you. Meanwhile, you can proceed.